talking about?
What are we talking about?
I don't know. What are we talking about?
So
there's so much going on.
Yeah.
There's so much going on.
Yes. So let's just recall some of the conversations we had before. We talked a lot about music-wise. We've talked about theory.
Music theory.
What are some of the most interesting things that we've talked about to you, like the most memorable at least?
Related to music or just regardless?
Oh, yeah, both.
Okay, so related to music, I think some of the most interesting things, definitely theory, and I think it's all piano theory. I haven't really gotten into guitar, like scaling and stuff yet.
Okay.
It's more so, this sounds right, and this is a pattern, and I know that I have to end on this A that's barred at a certain point after a certain number of frets or whatever else. Like that kind of stuff is how I learned by chords.
Okay.
All the theory stuff we did was on the piano. And it was probably learning how to modify chords, I would say. Like, when do I play a major? What's a dominant chord? Major sevenths, major ninths through major 13ths. That stuff is all fun. Arpeggiating, things like that. They're things you can apply to everything. And I think those are the most fun because then I can get on the piano and someone goes, hey, can you play Mary Had a Little Lamb?
Right.
And then I play it and they're like, wow, I hate you because it sounds so great and I've never played it before.
Right.
Or something like that. You know, whatever song. You just have to listen to it once and then you can add a bunch of things in that don't actually sound like the song but sound better.
Right.
So that's cool.
Yeah.
That's all music stuff.
Well, in my mind too, the music theory is the parts of what you're describing that apply regardless of the instrument. So throw all the instruments away and just talk about music.
Oh, raw music theory. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I apply those things to the guitar as well. Except they're easier to do on the guitar generally.
Right. But then it becomes
a
different. That becomes then applied music. So that's no longer theory.
It's just music in general. I could use that on any instrument if I learned how to play it, except for the drums.
Say it again.
I think any of that knowledge I could use on any instrument that I played.
Right.
Except for the drums.
Right. But as soon as you do it on an instrument, then it's not theory anymore. Then it's just applying your theory, which is applied music.
Yes.
Yeah. Cool.
Because it's like a biologist microscope thing. I don't know if you heard that analogy with music theory.
No.
Biologist, when you're looking through a microscope, you're using a utensil. And that microscope is music theory. And we're looking into music in order to apply something. But some people just take the microscope and they stare at the microscope. And that's just a music theorist. Someone who doesn't apply anything. They're not looking forward to how to apply this music, but they invest in discovering how it's created and to develop it.
Is that an analogy from something else?
It was an analogy I saw online. I watched a video.
Okay.
I think you referred me to something like that. It was a while back. But
yeah, I like that.
Interesting.
I'm a huge fan of analogies, especially the ones that work well. So I think that works. I'm trying to marry that with the other analogies that I'm thinking of. My favorite is just the language analogy, and then the theory part would be like grammar or like a grammar class in school. And that's the theory of you're not actually using the language, you're just talking about how you would use the language if you were going to use it.
Yes.
But you don't actually use it.
Then when you speak, that is applying it.
Yeah. So then do those cross?
I think so.
Like the microscope analogy, does that work for the language then? You would say that the grammar class is like a microscope and the actual language is...
I think grammar is applying more to a set of guidelines that is applied. Because you can break grammar all the time. I did that all the time in AP language. But it's just a set of guidelines, which is kind of what applied music theory is, I would say.
Right.
You can do anything. Yeah. You could do anything you want in music theory. You could play a chord on the piano right now that sounds awful, and you could justify it.
Okay.
And with grammar, that's kind of what it is. It's a set of guidelines saying this is typically how people read.
Right.
Or understand language.
Right.
And then I can manipulate language, Shakespeare created his own English.
Right.
It wasn't actually how they spoke to any degree. But with the microscope analogy, it's more like it's a tool.
Okay.
So music theory is represented as the microscope itself. It is a tool.
Yeah.
And there are scientists that work on the microscope over time to develop it.
Okay.
And they're not using the microscope to work on it. They're just working on the microscope. They're not applying anything.
Right. But that's where, I think that's what where my gut didn't like the analogy because with a microscope, you're observing what is and you can't change that. And with language, like we change our grammar rules as soon as the language change, or at least, okay, grammar teachers change like 50 years after the language changes.
That is true. That is
but
true.
It's all malleable. Whereas like if you find the cytoplasm, I think that's a word in science. I don't know. That's not going to change the fact that that was a thing that you found. I don't know.
That is true. But without the microscope, we wouldn't be able to manipulate things as well.
Okay.
And the idea is that through the microscope, we can see things very particularly.
Okay.
And we can change them.
Yes.
Like take eugenics or something like that. You know, we can change things based on very specific instruments.
You can't just throw in take eugenics and then move on.
Yeah, well, no, it's like
the great example of eugenics. Yeah. You know how much benefit that's done us all.
Yeah,
okay.
No, but you get the idea. Like we can manipulate things, whether it be for better or worse. You can justify things using music theory that sound awful, and you can say, "I took a class. I'm an expert. This sounds great."
I think yes. I think I like that part of it. You use what you find in the microscope to then manipulate other things, and that's in music theory. You are ostensibly learning about how music gets put together so that in the future you can better predict the way that better predict the reactions that you'll have when you combine other musical elements.
Right.
So this C chord with this F chord, this version of the C chord with this version of this F chord should create this kind of a feeling in the music.
Right, and I could say like, oh, F is the fourth. I could play a minor fourth after, and then I could end on my C, and like, there you go.
Nice.
There's your whole song, and everyone's like, oh, that sounded so good.
Right.
And I'm like,
but you know ahead
of time. I use that trick with everything.
Right.
Yes.
Because of your microscope.
Yes.
Okay, I like it.
Or you hear like a jump, and you're like, I know that's a fifth. And with the microscope, the idea is that you could take the microscope, and if you don't understand how it works, it's much harder to manipulate things, and you can't manipulate as much. So the better you understand it, the more you can manipulate. Like if I didn't know how to magnify a certain amount, I might not be able to see something that I would see otherwise.
Whoa, okay.
But just working on the microscope, if I just turn the microscope around and I open the bottom of it and I said, oh, this is how it works, and there's some kind of utensil here that I need to change out and whatever else, it would not be applied. It would just be working on music theory. I just understand music theory.
Man, I'm sorry you lost me.
So like the more you understand the microscope, the more you can look at. Just like any instrument.
Okay, sure.
The more you understand a car, the more you can drive it. The better you can drive it.
Right. Okay.
It's the same idea.
Cool.
So if I only work on the car, but I don't have a license, I still can't drive. Like I won't drive very well, but I'll know how to work on the car. The car is music theory.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
I think so.
So understanding the microscope to a certain degree is good.
Yes.
Because the more you understand it, the more you can manipulate the thing under it. But if you never look at the thing under it, you're never applying it.
I think that like that. So like I'm very accustomed to the circle of fifths, and that's like music theory, in my world that gets commonly used. And then like Jacob Collier comes along and he's like, but what about if you could do the circle of fourths? And then like that's like be like getting into the microscope and like what happens if you flip this lens around, or like what happens if you and then like when you then analyze it with your new tool that you took the old tool and you broke it in some way to create your new tool, then you get a new perspective on the thing that you're looking at.
And that's why it's good to have a balance. Because, with Jacob Collier, for example, like he's taking that microscope and he's changing it to see what he wants to see. And that's the whole goal of it, right? You want something, how am I going to get it?
Yeah.
And so you change the microscope, you learn the microscope, and you can change it based on how you want to get what's under it to look a certain way. And it's good.
Yeah. All right, cool. So that wasn't what we were supposed to talk about either. So,
yeah, it was good though.
Yeah.
So what is the goal to talk about then?
We don't have one. It's just a talk.
Okay, got it.
Because every time we have a lesson, then we
just talk about
whatever. Right.
Yeah.
And it ends up being like, oh, that was kind of a cool thing, but then we ran out of time to do it. So I figured schedule more time.
Yes.
And then talk about whatever we want, and we don't have to necessarily apply it to a particular instrument. But other things we've talked about that are not musical.
Ooh.
They were interesting.
To what degree? Like, what are we?
It's potentially viewed by kids.
So okay, then
YouTube kid friendly.
We have talked about.
I know that limits the number of things we've talked about.
quite. Yes. Okay. We've talked about driving and motorcycles a lot.
Okay.
Like in general.
That's true. Did you pass your thing?
I did.
Okay, so you took
your
class.
My CMSP. Yes.
Your CMSP?
California Motorcycle Safety something. I forget what the P stands for always. It's not permit because that's what I thought it was, and then it wasn't.
Oh, okay.
But
okay, so you now officially are allowed to drive, but you own no motorcycle.
No, I need to go to the DMV and I need to get a permit first, and then the CMSP waives the lollipop.
I don't know what that means.
The test you go to the DMV for to do the motorcycle like weaving and stuff.
Oh yeah, have you tried that test before?
I've not. It's supposed to be ridiculously difficult.
Insane. I like mapped it out in a parking lot and spent like 3 days trying to do it. It was
you can literally just take CMSP, which is it's $175 though.
I think that's the whole purpose of the whole thing. Yes. Is they don't want you to pass the test, they want you to go take the class.
Yeah. And also I have no idea how to drive a motorcycle. So I don't want to try and kill myself. So I was like, I'm going to CMSP. Plus, if you're under 21, you have to.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yes. Okay. Otherwise, you get your license right away. If you're 21, you just go take written tests, and you can take the license test in the same day. Mm-hmm. Since I'm under 21, I have to take the permit test, wait 6 months, then literally just walk in with the pass and be like, I passed the test, and then pay them $30, and they give me my license.
Okay.
Or something like that.
Okay.
So it's pretty.
And you know I'm terrified of you getting your license.
A motorcycle license?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Are you going to stay off the road?
No, for you. No,
for me?
There's not a chance you're going to hurt anybody else.
You're
going to kill yourself.
That's true. And generally when you crash, it is the rider's fault.
Okay.
That's in the class it was interesting.
In my head, I tell myself that, but I can't say that to anyone else who's crashed.
That is true.
Okay.
Because you can't victim blame. Like that's the toughest thing.
Well, if you yeah, right.
Or it's hard to go around being like, yeah, it's always your fault if you crash, which isn't true. Like motorcycles are more dangerous than cars. Mm-hmm. I think everyone can agree on that.
Okay. Yeah.
However, it's like comparing a boat and a car. They're completely different. They're different instruments. They're different vehicles, and they operate in different ways.
Man.
It's like with a car, you have walls around you.
Okay.
Right. Which is the whole idea. That's why people say cars are safer.
Okay.
With a motorcycle, you can get
away.
And
airbags and seatbelts.
Yes. And in a motorcycle, you have none of those things.
However, and you weigh nothing. So even in a car,
sometimes there are really heavy tour bikes.
Come on, dude.
That are like half the size of a small car.
Yes, right. So at best, if you get a ginormous bike, you're half the size
That's true.
of a little mini Euro car.
Which is what makes it dangerous. If you get hit, you're the one going down. But you can get away. That's the whole idea of a motorcycle. Is you have the best potential. Yes. I think everyone could agree that a motorcycle has the most potential out of any car or any vehicle on the road to get away from a situation.
Sure. Yeah.
Because they're two wheels. They're small.
Right. Well, and it's a ginormous engine compared to the size of the.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Relative to its size.
Yeah, and I ride. So I haven't said that yet. So that you know that, but they don't necessarily know that. So yeah, I ride.
Yes.
And I just think it's a terrible idea for motorcycles.
Well, here's what I'm planning on doing. I'm planning on getting like a 200cc small bike, something that's barely street legal.
But see, that gets rid. Yes, I like that. Except that gets rid of the exact same thing that you were just talking about.
Yes. Okay. However, I'm not going to bring it on the freeway or on really fast roads.
Okay.
That thing's probably going to hit like 65, maybe. Okay. It's probably going to have 5 gears. Mm-hmm. So my plan is to drive it around. I actually live in like the perfect spot to practice because I have residential all around me. Mm-hmm. Then I go a little bit down and I have oak, like half a mile down. Mm-hmm. I can drive on oak. That's like 40 miles per hour.
Yep.
And then I go to Greenback. That's like 40, 45. Mm-hmm. And then I can go past and go to Madison, which simulates a freeway, except it's a lot okay. Because it's a lot more guided. Mm-hmm. And then I'm planning on getting a new bike. Here's the kicker that you're going to hate me for. I'm planning on getting a Ninja Kawasaki.
Okay.
But it's 300cc. It's the baby one. So
it was nice knowing you.
It's a small bike. It's safer than a lot of bikes I could get, but it's also
that means nothing.
Safe.
Wait, no, that means nothing. That's like, yeah, I'm gonna go walk around on the freeway, but don't worry, I'll be wearing a t-shirt. I'm not gonna go like one of those shirtless guys. Like, there's no difference.
Okay, well, I'm planning on getting a sports bike.
Okay,
which is statistically more dangerous.
Okay.
Than any other bike.
Okay.
But that's because sports bikes beg you to ride a certain way.
Right.
Like it's so tempting to accelerate to 100 miles per hour in 3 seconds.
Because it's just sitting right there.
Because it's right there.
And you accidentally might do it too.
Yeah. And when you're going on a curve, you might overestimate.
Just going straight. You might just like... It's just right there.
Yeah.
It's right there. Exactly. It's like falling asleep when you're tired.
It's tempting.
Okay.
So it's important. That's when we say, well, it's the rider's fault. Mm-hmm. It's really easy to mess up. Probably more than any other vehicle.
Okay.
Other than like an aircraft. Except aircraft have so many safety protocols now.
No, come on. Have you ever tried to fly a plane?
No, not a single airplane. I mean like a passenger airplane. Like they're mostly on autopilot.
I don't know what that is. Oh,
like a Boeing or
I have
something.
no idea. I'm so outside of my I assume they're harder.
They're
amount of
all
hours you
automated
need.
now, I think.
I know, but the number of
pilots.
hours and training you need to do one of those versus like a little
You
Cessna.
do need a lot. I think
crazy.
they did a survey, and it was like over half of pilots and co-pilots admit to falling asleep, and then 30-something% of them admitted to seeing the other pilot or co-pilot asleep when they woke up. Because the planes are always autopiloted. 'Cause you turn a degree off, you go.
Okay, but the most dangerous and the most difficult parts are taking off and landing.
Yes.
Once you're in the
Yeah,
air.
landing is the most dangerous. I have a friend who her whole family gets like pilot licenses because her dad's a civil engineer and he's super into planes or something. Really weird combo.
Okay.
But she's like, yeah, I can take off a plane. I just can't get it back on the ground. It's like, oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. That's yeah, I guess that's true.
Yeah. But the point is, motorcycles are very easy to mess up on. Among the easiest of existing vehicles.
I'm not disagreeing.
I would say.
Go ahead.
I would say. Like, I'm an experienced rider, obviously. But I would say, just based on what I've seen, I see people, like I was down in San Francisco yesterday, and I never realized how many riders there were. There's so many riders. And there was this one rider on a sports bike that I didn't cut off, but I pulled in front of him when he was about, I'd say probably 150 feet back, something like that. And I'm looking out for motorcycles. Like, I'm very cautious about motorcycles.
Right.
Because one of the biggest things they stress in the class as being a driver is, if you want to be a better driver, look for motorcycles, because people aren't looking for them. So I'm looking around for motorcycles all over the place. I got my windows open on the freeway so I can hear motorcycles that are coming, because they're louder than everything else.
Okay.
And this guy on a sports bike is lane splitting while people are going 50 miles per hour
Yeah.
in the first and second lanes. So I'm like, ooh, yikes, because you're only supposed to lane split. I think the CHP guidelines are like 30 miles per hour and not over 40.
There's nothing. No, they're not going to play over.
Yeah,
anything.
and it's I don't think it's illegal.
Oh, okay.
I don't think it's illegal to lane split that fast. But on a sports bike, when you're going that quick and your engine isn't making much noise because you're not accelerating,
Right.
and you're lane splitting, and he was behind a car, that's what makes it dangerous. That's when you need to be aware.
So if I'm lane splitting, which is only legal in California, I have no idea how that's like the one libertarian law we have in California is. But if you're lane splitting, like almost the faster everyone is going, the less likely it is that like they're going to open their door, or because that's the scary thing to me. Like, if everyone's parked, like, I'm going to go like a half a mile an hour. I'm going to walk my stupid bike in between the cars, because that's terrifying. Or even like 10, like, you'd be amazed like how quickly people will be going. They'll be like going 10, 15, 20 miles an hour and like go to throw something out their door. Like, you're insane. But if they're up like 30, 40 miles an hour, then they
can't open their door.
So then it's just a matter of knowing that they are trying to kill you. Every single one of them, you're going to start to go around them, and they are going to, on purpose, see you and then go right into you as soon as you move. Of course, that's not true, but it's going to feel like it when you're there. You're like, what kind of idiot? I'm never on my bike that I'm not out there going, what kind of an idiot drives like that?
I mean, lane splitting in general, though, can be argued that as safer than staying behind cars, because it's more likely.
Depends on the driver. Yeah.
Yeah, it's more likely a car is going to hit you from behind.
Right. Yep.
Than it is that cars are going to go inward.
Yeah. Or just stay off to the side. Like pretend like you're going to lane split. So then just don't. Then you got to watch out for. I don't. What's the kid friendly version? Stupid motorcycle riders behind you, because they'll be going 40 miles an hour trying to split this set of 0 mile an hour cars. Not watching out for their safety, and then you like drift into their lane, and then they, of course, they're irate at you, but then you've got this guy who's coming up on you at like 15 miles an hour. You don't think he sees you, and he's looking down at his texting, so you move into the lane split territory so you can get out of the way, and then motorcycle rider gets mad at you.
Yeah, they're dangerous vehicles. Okay. But I think that after some time riding, like, I'm going to practice for my entire permit, hopefully.
Okay.
I think after practice and after being constantly aware, it becomes significantly safer. And obviously things like wearing a helmet, not driving drunk, which is the stupidest thing you could possibly do, especially on a motorcycle.
But that's a given, right?
Yeah.
If you ride drunk, like...
Yeah. And I mean, you'd think it's very obvious. I think in 2012, the CHP statistic was 52% of riders that got into crashes were inebriated.
Okay. Yeah.
Which is crazy to me.
But we're not talking about them. obviously
that's a
idiotic.
separate
Sure,
issue.
right. Yeah.
So that takes away a lot of the danger and statistics that people look at right off the bat. I'd say.
I don't like that phrase, and your mom doesn't like that phrase, but I understand
what takes
you're
off
saying.
a lot of the danger.
Yes.
Well,
it doesn't take off any of the danger for you.
Perceived danger.
Okay.
Like when people say, look it up, research the statistics. That takes up a lot of the statistical danger.
Okay.
Or I should say
but comparing your motorcycle to your car, it's still 0. And everyone knows, everyone who's learning to drive is going to get in an accident, right? Like everyone gets in an accident. You have your first accident, your second accident, maybe your third accident, and maybe your 10th accident, but hopefully you can limit it to just a few and then like get scared. But then if you go, every time one of those happens, your likelihood of dying is near 100%, and then that's a motorcycle. So it's like, it's not a matter of whether you're going to get in a motorcycle accident. It's a matter of when you're going to get in a motorcycle accident and what is the risk then. So you just got to...
I would say that's pretty true.
Always dress... What do they say? Dress for the slide, not the ride, or something.
When your bike goes out under you.
So, yeah, because you're going to get in an accident.
Yeah.
And then you have to be wearing... That's what you got to dress when you go out.
Yeah. And although it's not a guaranteed thing in California, it's pretty likely, whether that be without a car or with a car.
Oh, yeah.
Because, I mean, your bike going out from under you or crashing into the back of a car, I think are the two most likely.
Yeah. One wet leaf, dude. One wet leaf.
Yeah,
that's all
enough.
it takes. And
That's
it's
enough.
over. Yeah. My friend was like 20 years older than me, had at least 20 years riding experience on me, was on a safer bike than me, and left his house, hadn't even gotten to one of the main roads, went to turn left. His bike, he had like a big old, like one of the safer bikes, big old Goldwing, and went to turn left. Bike slid out from under him. He slid into his neighbor's fence, cracked a rib, and was in the hospital for a long time. Like,
Yeah.
and that's a great rider, but it's one wet leaf. Anyway.
I think one thing about sports bikes that is safer, I might be totally wrong about this, but this is a perceived thing. They have much bigger tires than a lot of bikes. Like the Ninja, at least, the one that I'm looking at.
Okay.
It's got a lot of room for traction.
Okay.
And although the traction itself is only like a playing card on the bottom of the tire,
Right.
it's still bigger.
Okay.
But I don't know. If you ride
It's
correctly,
if you would go ahead.
I was going to say, if you ride correctly, like theoretically, if you could ride at the best of safety constantly, you would be at a much lower risk of an accident.
Yeah.
Close to a car.
Absolutely. That's true for driving a car or riding a bicycle.
Yes.
Or walking along the freeway.
And it's not a reality, but it's something you can always strive for.
Okay. Well, I'll stop momming you. We can change topics.
Okay,
But
let's do it.
Be careful out there.
I will.
Don't get on the bike unless you're afraid of the bike. The second you don't...
Yes, I told my mom you said that.
Okay. That's why we're friends. So the second you feel like today I'm just going to go out and ride it, and you don't sit on it and go a little bit like, oh, I could die today. That's the day you don't go out. And you always dress for the accident you are going to eventually get into.
I'm planning on getting full leathers and a good DOT or I think it's ECE helmet.
Yeah. And then every moment that you're out there, assume that everybody who's on the road is trying to hit you on purpose, and you just have to act that way. And then then I think you have a lot lower likelihood of getting an accident. But
Beware.
Yeah. It's the one thing that I really like about riding my bike is it's so like intensive. Like when I'm out there, like I have to pay such close attention. There's no room for like anything else.
Yeah.
So it's very like meditative. Like I get done with my ride and I get off my bike and it's like I haven't been worrying about anything except for dying for like, however long I've been riding. So I go out for a half-hour ride and like whatever I was frustrated about before or mad about before, as long as I don't take it with me, those are the guys who die. You get mad and go out for a ride because, they're angry or whatever, and they're still thinking about it and they don't notice the people that are trying to kill them on the road. But you go out and you just like focus on not dying for 30 minutes and it's quite a cool stress reliever for me. But
Yeah.
be safe out there. Don't wreck your pretty face.
I'll try. Or my pretty bike. Because I won't have enough to get a new one.
You won't have enough to get a new face either, man. All right. Now really change subjects.
Okay.
All right. Something else.
What else have we talked about?
I know we talked about motorcycles and music theory. Is there anything else in music theory that has been particularly interesting? You have a student now.
I do. I do. Has my mom told you about that?
Oh, wait, no, we're not talking about the same thing.
Your
mom hasn't. I'm talking about what's her face, don't say her name.
Oh, got it. Yes.
Who's learning guitar.
Yes.
And then you're talking about somebody else.
I have 2 students.
You have 2 students?
Yeah, no, I do. It's so cute. They're both girls.
Growing up. Oh.
Yes.
Okay.
One of them is 40 though. So,
oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, she's my mom's friend, and she wants to learn some piano stuff.
Awesome.
So I have been teaching her that.
Okay. What are you teaching her?
I forget the name of the song. It's one of those like French named songs or something like that. But I have it saved somewhere, and it's kind of resemblant to what's a good song to compare to? Have you heard "When the Love Falls" by Yuruma?
No, but I feel like all of his songs are kind of the same.
The difference is the repetition. Okay. It has repetition, but it's not scaled like canon, and it's not constant like River Flows in You.
Okay.
It's kind of jumpy.
Okay.
But they're all the same chords.
Okay.
Just like every
Sure.
song.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, it's something relatively easy. It took me like 10 minutes to pick up, probably.
Cool. And so you're teaching her how to play that one?
Yes.
Cool. Does she have any background?
No, I don't think so. Yeah.
Cool. So she's playing a song.
She owns a keyboard.
Okay.
But I don't remember why. I don't think it's hers.
There are so many. I was just discussing this with another student the other day. Of my online students, like obviously like in person, the majority of my students are like kids because parents force their kids to take lessons or whatever, and they were looking for someone in the neighborhood, and I'm in the neighborhood.
You're a good person to be forced to have a lesson. I would want to be forced to have 30 minutes with you. Yeah.
I'm the least forcey of all the forcey teachers.
Yes.
But for the online students though, like there's no majority, like everyone's kind of got their own story, but if they're like the largest minority of students are like 40 to 60-year-olds, apparently single women, or single. like widows or divorcees or something like that.
They want something to occupy their time, or
or like they've always wanted to play, and then they like finally retire or have some other extra income or something, and are able to do this thing. So and they really like like all of them enroll in Clapple Academy because they really like the structure of like, tell me the right way to play all of the right stuff in the right order, and they don't want any like you know how I am, like just like, well, what do you want to do? Let's learn what you want to do. Like, I don't want to tell you what I want to learn to do. Tell me the right way to play the piano. So it's very step by step and very instructional. Yeah, and
structured. I call it redundant for me. Like I can't learn like that.
Yeah,
it's got to be. I love the way that you taught me, which was, what song do you want to play? And then we sat down and you're like, okay, you hit this key. I'm like, why?
That's my favorite.
And then
you asked my question. He said, why? I'm in love.
Yeah, and then you would explain it. You would say, this is this is a scale right here. This is a key or whatever. And then eventually I would use those terms, and he'd be like, no. You're proficient now. Like, you should know the difference between these two things. Okay. So I loved the way that was learned, and people are really amazed when I tell them that I've only been playing for like 2.5 years on piano, and then on guitar especially. When I tell people I've been playing for like a year and a half, they're like, "No, there's no way."
How much do you practice though?
Define practice.
Work hard at something you can't yet do.
I would count learning songs in that.
Okay. Yeah. Sure.
But I can do the skills. Like, I learned a song recently called "Strawberries" by Camp, and it took like probably 3 to 5 minutes.
Okay.
The hard part is singing along with it once you memorize it. Because like playing the song itself is easy, but doing anything else, it's like the motorcycle riding, doing anything else, multitasking, makes it a lot harder. Yeah. Especially when it's all picked. And it was like a picked song, and it was like an F. It was an F add 9 to a C. Something like that. But like those chords, I already know how to structure them, and I already know what they're picking, because you hear there's a very distinct difference in each of the 6 strings on the guitar. So when someone plucks a certain string, you can say, oh, that is this note in this octave, right? Or this note on this string at the very least, right? So learning things themselves, like learning songs, if that's practice, I do that quite a bit. Whenever I find a song that I find relatable or emotionally connective or something like that, I always want to learn it because I want to be able to sing it and I want to be able to sing it for myself. And I do that quite often. I would say at least a song a week, at least a couple songs a week. And although they don't take very long, they take a long time to expert. On the piano, much longer because I'm constantly hitting the wrong notes.
Right.
Because like I get better at that every single time I play. I notice like, oh, I know it's not this because this isn't in the key. Why? I never memorized the circle fifths because I was lazy, but I just play and hit it so much.
It's just bead, man. It's just bead.
It's just bead.
B-E-A-D. And you got to throw in an F and a C.
I know.
That's it.
I know. I can do it in my head. Like if you were to ask me, I think I could do it in my head. But when I'm playing, it's not a practicality.
Yeah.
Like I can't think of it that quickly. And honestly, I could probably sit down for a day or two and just memorize.
Not even a day.
Straight up everything.
45 minutes of playing through the circle of fifths and you'd have it all.
Yeah, and I would be able to, after playing for some time, know which notes are supposed to go in and which aren't. But sometimes I find things that aren't in the circle of fifths that are interesting. And that's what we were talking about before. Like if I'm in a major key and I'm playing a major third, what is that, a major fifth and a minor key? Right?
Wait, what?
A major key, major third.
Like a major 3 chord, like an E major chord in the key of C.
Yes, which would be a major fifth in the key of A minor, which is its sister key. Right?
Okay.
If that makes sense. And that's how I pair it in my head.
Okay, cool.
I'm like, oh, well, this is allowed because this is whatever.
Oh, because it is the 5 of the relative minor.
Yes, which is dominant.
Oh.
So I think of it as like, oh, I'm switching keys for a minute, and I'm like, oh, Jamin would yell at me. But it sounds good.
Would I? When have I yelled
know.
at you?
Never.
Okay.
It's more like, what?
No, that's allowed.
Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely.
First, most importantly, because it sounds good. Secondarily, because it is the 5 of the chord that you're going to. So in general, dominant chord, like it doesn't matter if it's in the key or not. If you have a diatonic chord, a chord that's going to show up naturally inside the key, like in the key of C, you got an A minor, or a G or an F or an E minor or a D minor.
Yes.
Any of those. The 5 of any of those is going to lead into it well.
Yes.
So when you play the 5 of it and then you finally land on it, you have landed inside the key of C. So you go E major to A minor. A minor feels like it's all right because it's inside of the key of C.
Yeah.
That's entirely different than going like an E flat major to an A flat, which would be a 5 to a 1. But the place that you landed was not inside the key.
And so it doesn't sound.
And so it's not you're not going to feel like you really landed the same way because the place that you landed was outside of the key of C.
Right.
And so then it's like, okay, well, I hear we did like a 5 to a 1, but I'm still like floating around in the air up here. Like when are you going to settle things down and bring it back to the key of C?
Right. Yes.
So that's the rationale I'd give for the E major, is not that it is the 5 in the relative minor, but because it is leading to a chord that is diatonic to the key. Yeah.
Yeah. That would be the theoretical explanation.
Is that yelling at you?
You have a better microscope. No, it's not yelling.
Okay.
Jamie doesn't yell. He like laughs a lot and then goes, "What? How do you figure that out?" Or "I'm very impressed." Or
and that's one of my favorite things about teaching anyone, but people like you especially, like because you don't ask me questions between the lessons ever. You just figure stuff out. So you come in with like this stuff that's like pieced together and like structured in a really I don't know, like there's people who struggle with math class, but then they like find a way to get to the solution, and it's not the way the teacher taught at all. And so you bring stuff in, you're like, here, I did this and this and this. I'm like, oh, that doesn't, where did you get that stuff? And then you tell me about like your process of going around stuff. And not only is that interesting for me as a musician, but then it's all like as a teacher to think, okay, so this made more sense to this student than the way that I would have gone about this. There's a chance that this would make more sense for somebody else too. So I kind of like can add that to my repertoire of like, here's other tools. When I'm trying to explain this really simple concept and it's just not clicking for someone, maybe I can use the Nick method of getting around that. So the more you bring in stuff like that and other students like you, the more I'm able to like guide students who wouldn't follow a normal traditional method or
Yeah,
whatever.
I definitely see that. And it's the same with, I think with any teaching, like with your teaching too,
Oh, yeah.
when the other person that is my student came in here and learned from you, I walked outside and the first thing I said was like, okay, how much did you retain from it? And she's like, actually a lot. And I was like, okay, that's awesome.
That's what you feel
because
like.
when I was sitting there, I was playing my guitar and I was like, I can't understand what he's talking about because I never learned about scales. And I just kind of like, oh, here's the first note. Sounds like it's going to be this far ahead.
Right.
And then you play the whole scale and people are like, okay, well, what? I don't know.
Right,
It's the note that I started on.
So you're talking about you brought in a potential student of yours, and I like gave them the beginnings of their project.
Right.
Because
And they received it extremely well.
Okay.
And for me, I would have taught them totally different. And both methods are applicable.
Right. But that's like, so the difference is, like, when you came in for lessons, you were like, hey, I don't know any English. Teach me English. I'm like, all right, there's so much English out there. What do you already like in your language? And let's translate some of that stuff. And then this other person comes in and says, hey, I need to give a speech on
blank
biology by December. And I'm like, well, we're not going to start with whatever you enjoy in life and just translate that because there's this very specific goal. So let's go through these steps. They're both learning English, but one of them has a very direct and I think that's the more traditional approach is like, here's all the right steps that will guide you to this thing. But in the end, everybody ends up giving a speech on biology, and there's so much more to the language than that. Like for a guy like me sitting back, like I hate biology, and I'm still floating around in this analogy, I think. I hate biology. Like, well, there's so many other more wonderful things you could do with language. Sure, we could go in that direction with learning about our language, but why wouldn't we come over here and learn about, I don't know.
Yeah,
motorcycles or
no, that makes sense to me.
Yeah,
definitely. I think that's the hardest part about teaching, is that you never know which method you have to approach with. And I feel like for someone who teaches like you've experienced teaching so many people, it's a lot easier to select a method that's going to work for the person that walks in the door.
But I hadn't always. I mean, I started
but
somewhere.
now you can.
Well,
because you've been teaching for
arguably,
like 20 years.
I would say no. Like, there's still people that come like you that come in with these weird, hobbled together theoretical approaches, and I'm
guess
like,
so. But you know now.
I know because you brought it in. I did not have that approach before you came in.
But so everyone's always learning. You know, like you're always going to pick up on things,
right?
And you'll get weird students sometimes.
But that's why you don't need to have experience to teach that way. It's just like you're just trying to, when the student comes in, see the world from their perspective instead of teach them what perspective they're supposed to have on a thing.
Yeah,
so it's like, what are you? Because I've got like this new guitar student, and she came in and she's in the window that I was talking about of the types of people that like to take lessons that are not kids. And so she's like, well, just teach me the right things to do. And so, we start off with, okay, well, here's a scale. And then she's like, well, tell me this, like when you're writing a song, like where's the right place to start? I'm like, oh, this is not a scale lady. This is a like larger concept theory lady. Like either she's really...
She has a goal.
Yes. And she wants to know the whys and the hows more than the what's, probably. So I start talking a little bit about that, and I give her like this little analogy. I'm like, well, because she's talking about her favorite bands and like the songs that they write and stuff. I'm like, well, that's kind of like if I didn't know any. Again, I overuse this language analogy, but I was like, it's kind of like me coming to you and asking to learn. I don't know any English, but like, how do you write a story? And there's so many levels of that. Like, well, everyone writes stories. It just comes out of the language. You can't know a language and not tell stories. That's all we're doing right now.
Yes.
Is telling stories. So there's like that level. And then there's like authors who get paid to write official stories that are written down on paper. And all of those are telling stories. And what's the right way to create a story? Like you came in here and we started talking and you started telling a story. How did you come up with that? It's like, it just comes out of the language. And then she like grabbed onto that and like asked more questions about that. Oh yeah, that makes sense. So are you saying that? And so then at that point, like scales don't matter at all. Like we're talking about the way that music is constructed. And for her, I think getting a broader perspective of like what music is and what it does and how it affects us and how we affect other people with it and all of that stuff is going to be a lot better introduction to the art than play this fret, then play this fret.
I think everyone should learn how to play an instrument, because not playing instruments for me, speaking of learning differently for each person, not playing instruments for me, because I only started playing when I was 15, 14, 15.
I don't know.
I don't remember. It was young though, but not really young. Like usually when people start an instrument, they start at like 7 years old, 5 years old, and they're like, yeah, I've been playing the piano for like 10 years.
To old people like me, all of you are the same age.
I guess so, yeah. Some are just way more annoying than others. But
that's true of people my age too.
Yes, that is true. That's just with people. But there's a big gap missing before you get into instruments, I think.
Oh.
Like
for theory?
No, just for playing in general. Because when we're talking about like we were saying like, you know, people learn different ways and whatever else, and we can influence each other using music. Mm-hmm. But I think everyone should play an instrument.
Would you say the same thing about the other art forms? Everyone should learn how to draw.
No. And the reason is music is it's universal.
I don't think that means anything. But
I think it does.
Go ahead.
I think something that's it's like language. Everyone speaks language.
That's cheating. You can't use my own analogy on me.
Everyone speaks language. It's true though, right? Everyone listens to music to some degree or another. Find a cultural group that doesn't listen to music.
But everyone draws to some extent and sees drawings all over the place.
Everyone sees drawings, but they're not more common than music.
Okay, but the commonness is the
pictures. Reason? If you include that in drawing, yes.
I agree with you, but I think that's only because I'm biased.
Well, I'm biased too. I play music, and I have a personal experience of missing a lot until I started playing music.
Yes.
So I know.
But you'd say the same thing about drawing if you got into drawing and you really loved it and it really spoke to you, right?
Maybe, but I'm not in that position.
Yeah, right. No, that's all I'm saying is it's hard for people who like music to know whether everyone should learn music or not.
And one of the differences is that drawing, some people can't draw. Like
some people can't play.
Everyone can paint. Like trust me, everyone can play something.
That's true.
Like there are so many instruments.
But people who draw think that everyone can draw something,
and they're wrong.
Right. But we've seen the art teachers who are like that. But like everyone can draw. It's just no. Excuse me, miss. I can't draw. And I think a lot of people feel that way, same way about music. Like I really feel like anyone can do something in music. Anyone can enjoy music. And there are people who like, excuse me, sir, that's not true at all.
Well, I don't know. I mean, my art teacher said the same thing. She was like, everyone can draw. And then we were doing 3D perspectives, and she said something that wasn't kid-friendly to me. And I was like, well, that's cool. And she's like, you know what? Just be my TA for the rest of the year, because you can't do anything.
Oh, man.
I can't draw anything.
That's so rough. So here's one thing that I have gotten in my years of teaching, and that is students telling me stories like that of my interaction with them, and me not having meant anything like that at all.
About you mean like you saying you can't play?
Yeah, they're like, do you remember that time when you said to me, and I'm like, oh no. Like, first of all, you heard it wrong, and second of all, what I was actually saying was the opposite of that. I thought you were so good, I was offering you a TA position that I only give to people who are
proficient.
But the way they just stopped playing music because of the mean thing that I said to them. So that doesn't help any of my students. It helps me to be more terrified of life and the job that I do. But in my own learning, it has helped me to understand that like a teacher's feedback can be
very
absolute. What's that?
Very influential.
Very influential, but then it makes it less influential for me. So when I hear a teacher say something to me, then if I hear it as something negative, either they're an idiot, or they're right, or I misheard them, and all of those are equally possible. So I wouldn't let anyone teacher. And now I'm arguing for art. Say that. Well, tell you that you can't. Or at least not without a second opinion, because it might be that you suck at art.
Yeah.
But it might be that she was trying to say something else, or that she was trying to say you suck at art and you just don't.
Yeah. And I mean, your situation with writing, right? You said that your college professors loved your writing and your high school teachers hated it.
Well, all of my college professors, except for my English professors. All of my English professors hated all of my writing, and they still do. Anytime I take any kind of English class, all of them, and I don't know what it is because they won't give me any helpful feedback at all. Maybe because I'm too obstinate. Yeah, well, I mean, they've got like their general criticisms of it or whatever, but other than like the grammatical errors and stuff, and then some of those like I have put in on purpose, not all of them, but some of them I put in on purpose. I had one English, I take it back. I had one English professor. His name was Bob Lyman. I think that's his name.
Okay.
And he was excellent, and he just tore me to shreds. Like I handed in a paper, and he didn't give me any of the like normal critique about like my style or anything, but he like broke down like, you didn't use this correctly and this is wrong, and like and that's like the one part of English that I thought I had down. Like I was great in grammar, and I like knew how stuff was constructed, and then he just tore it all apart, and he's like, no, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong. I was like, oh,
and it helped you become a better writer.
Suck for all of the reasons that I thought I was good. Like, if you would have said anything else about my writing, I could have just hated you forever, like everybody else. But instead, you were right, and so that was humbling.
Yeah, that's definitely.
Yeah. Anyway, you were saying, so
I don't remember. I was going to read something
about English and writing and style.
Oh yeah, art's garbage. For me, no, I have a lot of friends who are artists, and I respect what they do because I can't. I can't draw. I can't paint. I can't do any of that. I can write. Like, that's my version of art, writing and music.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
But
what else is there? There's drawing. There's language.
Yes.
Which would include like
speeches.
Yes, I'm including
poetry,
that in writing.
And then writing.
There's
like
so many
essays.
different types of writing. Yeah, that's like
breaking. I'd say there are two major types though. You have like language speaking, like rhetoric.
Okay.
And then you have, and that'd be like courtroom rhetoric or speaking.
Argumentation.
And then you have like poetry, and every other kind of writing.
Yeah, right. But that's like saying, well, there's like music, and then there's like country, and then there's like jazz, and I think
there's
that's
genres.
Not fair.
Genres.
Right. Yeah.
When you're speaking and writing, they're two different physical actions.
No, I agree. So there's speaking, there's writing, there is drawing, there's music,
drawing and painting, music. Ceramics would be included in drawing and painting for me.
Sculpture,
photography.
Okay.
There's not really a lot. People act like there's a ton.
So the fact that you're good at writing and music means that you're basically good at almost all art.
Yeah.
Except for drawing. Okay.
I can't draw. I can't do ceramics. I can't take pictures. I can take pictures, but not good ones. Like, I can take decent pictures. Like, if someone asks me, can you take a picture of us? Yeah, I can take a picture of all you, and you'll be content with it.
There's so much there too.
Yeah.
Like what a decent picture is. Like, because all of my students, 100% of my students, feel the exact same way about music. They're like, well, I mean, I can play, but I can't like play. And like that's the way I feel about me. Like sure I can play unless I'm in the room with someone else who can play, and then I'm not going to admit that I have anything to do with music at all. So, but we're out of time. Topic for another time.
That's fine. Yes.
All right. Cool. Thanks, man.
All right. Yeah, of course.
Okay.